We are now on the first white line. Right? First white line on 153b, Kufnun Gimel Amud Bet. Good morning, everyone. Good Erev Shabbos. Amar Avad Barahava. Hayta chavilato munachat lo al ktefo. Someone's walking. You're walking on Erev Shabbat. So whatever is on you, and you have a package on you, whatever is on you now, you already uprooted. Right? There are two parts to every melacha. There's not to every melacha, to the melacha of Hotza'ah, right? You remember that, Lior? You have the akira and the hanacha. The uprooting and the placing. That's the two components to the melacha. So here you're walking on Erev Shabbat with the item is already on you. You're carrying. It says a package, maybe it's heavier, it doesn't matter. The point is you're walking, so you already did the first part before Shabbat. And now, and only now, so now what do you do on Shabbat? So it says, he says, Ratz tachteo ad shemagia lebeto. You can run underneath it without stopping. I don't think it means you have to run. It just means don't stop until you get home. Okay? Why? Because you already did the hanacha. So you're not being okay on Shabbat. You're not doing the akira. The dafka rotz. Says the Gemara, no. Don't think it just means rotz. Like walking. Don't stop. No, it means specifically running. Aval kali lo. My timer. If you go slowly, don't. Kivon delet lehekera ve'ati lemeva dakira v'hanacha. He's not going to remember. He's not making any signs for himself to remember not to make a new akira. If you're allowing him to do this and he walks slow, then he's bound to stop probably and then continue and make a new akira hanacha. Therefore, we don't allow him. Now, the question is, Rishonim, if this is only for a heavy package, and therefore running with a heavy package is for sure going to remind you that you can't make a new akira because you're sweating and it's a heavy package and you're not allowed to. If you want to get home like this, you have to run. So the guy, it's a tremendous weight on him. The fact that he's running with the weight, no pun intended. So the pressure on him is so much that he's not going to forget. It's a great reminder. But if you have a little wallet of money, the case in the Mishnah, and you're walking, do you have that heter also? Is that running going to remind you? So it's machlokes rishonim. Also, is this heter only when you can't walk less than 4 amot? Remember we said yesterday there was a secret. The Mishnah didn't want to say it because people could abuse it, right? But okay, so that's another machlokes. So the Gemara says, "Seif kimat al veisi yefshad loy koi purto." They come ayel mishus ram mishus hayochid. Right before he gets into the house, Rabbi, the door is closed, right? So naturally, even if you run to your house, when you get to your house, you're going to stop for a second, and then you're going to walk in, and they can do akira and nacham. So the Gemara says, "The zorak leklachiyat." That the teretz is that he throws the package into the house with a shinui.
With a what?
With a shinui, meaning in an interesting, different manner. You throw it backwards in, okay? Then you're not over on the Issa D'Oraita. So basically, you're doing the hanocha, you're making sure that right? It goes into the house, kalachayat. Omer Rabbi Bracham. Hamechamer acha behem to b'Shabbat. B'shogeh chayav chatat. B'mezid chayav skila. If someone is mechamer means you ride the donkey, you make the donkey carry packages for you on Shabbat. So it's like you and the donkey together doing the malacha of carrying. That's an isser in the Torah. According to Rami Bar Bachama, the halacha is it's like a regular melacha on Shabbat. If you did it b'shogeg, you bring a chatat. B'meizid yichayev skila. My timer. You and your animal should do melacha. Behemto dum yudidei. Your behemoth should be exactly like you. Mahu b'shogeg chayav chatat b'meizid chayav skila. Af behemto nami b'shogeg chayav chatat b'meizid chayav skila. There's no difference. The Torah equates both of them. So now you might ask, you never heard of this melacha. I heard of 39 melacha, I didn't hear of the 40th. There's a chidush now, mechamer. So the Rishonim say no, because it's really carrying. So the Torah is saying that when your animal carries, it's like you're carried. It's the same melacha of carrying. Amar Rava, shtei tshuvot b'davar. So Rava says, about what Rabbi said. Rabbi said, Lo tasa kol melacha ata ubehemtecha. You and your animal, so when your animal carries, and you made your animal carry, and you led your animal on Shabbat, you told him, let's go. Or you moved him. Torah equates with you. So Rava says to Rabbah, I have two responses. Now Rava, the one who's responding, is a Talmud of Rabbah. He says, Chada, it says to his rabbi, Dichtiv Torah achat yeh lachem la'oseh b'shkagav ha'nefesh ta'aseh b'yad ramah. So since the Torah says this pasuk, it says Torah achat yeh lachem la'oseh b'shkagav v'ha'nefesh ta'aseh b'yad ramah. The Torah equates all those who bring a korban chatat, we had this earlier in Shabbat, to the one who does avodah zarah b'shogeg. There's a pasuk when you bring a korban for avodah zarah. Over there it says there should be one law for all those who do b'shkaga. Remember we had to compare it. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua in the Perek Milah. If you're doing a mitzvah, you mixed up the babies, Friday baby, Sunday baby. They were trying to compare it to avodah zarah because of this pasuk as well. And we had it before also. Mahu b'shogeg chayav chatas b'meizid chayav skila af behemtei nami b'shogeg chayav chatas b'meizid chayav. Oh, sorry. Whoops. Just skipped. It says shehukshu kol Torah kula la'avodah zarah. Ma avodah zarah de ovid ma'aseh begufei hachanami ad de ovid ma'aseh begufei. Just like avodah zarah, you need to do an action with your guf. It says la'oseh b'shkaga. So to here too. Now, what are you doing with your animal? You're saying, let's go donkey, let's go. So that's mechamer. You did an action with your body? No. So therefore you can't be chayav on b'shkaga chatat. That's what Rava says. There's a rule. It's got to look like the mistake, the sin of avodah zarah b'shogeg for you to bring a chatat. Because in the story of avodah zarah b'shogeg, over there it says Torah achat, yeah. There should be one rule for all those who do b'shkaga across the whole Torah. So it's the prototype. We learn from avodah zarah to all other cases. Now this doesn't look like avodah zarah at all. In what way? You're not doing an action with your body. Speaking is not an action. Throughout Shas, speaking is not called an action. Like saying testimonies, a lav, it's an aver she'ein bo maaseh. It's called that. That's not an action. Okay. Another problem I have, says Rava to Rabbah. Tanana mechalel ta Shabbat, b'davar shechayivin ala shegigoto chatat ve'al zdono skila. You only get skila with something that it's shkaga is chatat. Then b'mezid you get skila. Michlal de'ikami de'ein chayavin al shegigoto chatat ve'lo al zdono skila. That means there are things that you don't. There are chilul Shabbat. Okay. These chilul Shabbat on things that you don't get chatat for shkaga and zdono skila. Umay niu lav de mechamer. It's the lav of mechamer. The Mishnah was listing things that you have on Shabbat that had skila and chatat, which inferred that there were other types of isurim on Shabbat. It's got to be this one. And therefore, Rava says that there's no such thing. So the Gemara says, Loi. Tchumen, ve'aliba de Rabbi Akiva, havara ve'aliba de Rabbi Yossi. No, there are other things that the Mishnah meant. Okay? Because the Mishnah said these are the things that you get on Shabbat. You get chatat b'shogeg and tzkila b'mezid. Sounds like there's some other things that you don't. So Rava said this must be it. Rava says that kasha, the second kasha, is not a great kasha. Why? Because there are other inserts that you can insert. Tchumen means you walk out of the 2,000 amot. Al yetze ish mimikomo bayom hashvi'i. According to Rabbi Akiva, that is the oraita. It's not the Rabbanan. And havara, according to Rabbi Yossi, now it's the oraita according to Rabbi Akiva, but it's not a malacha. Okay, it's just like walking out of your makom, but it's not a malacha. And according to Rabbi Yossi, havara lo teva'aru esh v'chomot moshvotechem b'yom Shabbat. Remember we had this before. Why did it? By the way, if I ask you, Lior and David, what is the only melacha that's mentioned in the Torah? You know, the 39 melachot. It just says whatever's in the Mishkan. It puts it next to the Mishkan to teach you whatever was done in the Mishkan shouldn't be done here. So we learn out from the Mishkan. There was cooking, there was baking, threshing. We know all those. But which one does it say actually do not do? It just says lo taseh melacha, don't do melacha. What is melacha? We learn from the Mishkan what melacha is. But there's one that's mentioned. Which one is that? Fire. Lo teva'aru. So why was it singled out? So Rabbi Yossi says the reason why it was singled out is lilav yatzat, to make it into just a regular avera without death. Which means if you go to a guy and you warn him, hey, it's Shabbat, don't make a fire, and he makes the fire, he doesn't die like the other 38. He gets makot. It's a lav. It's a regular. It's like eating pork. It's like wearing shatnez. But it's not melachat Shabbat that you get skila. So that is the 40th. Because it says it straight out, right? Yeah, but the thing is that it's separated from the other ones, and the other ones are for sure going to get skila, because the Torah says clearly, "Mechalelei hayom mot yumat" on those melachot. Since this is brought down by itself somewhere else, it just says, don't do this. So it's like all the other don't do's. That's why. I know what you're saying, but it's because it's separated from those. Okay. Now, so the Gemara says, so therefore that question of saying that, there's nothing to insert over here besides mechamer, that's not such a strong question, says the Gemara, because we have other ones. But the first question is a very strong question about that. What was the first question? There's a hekesh to avodah zarah. Avodah zarah, it says all the chataot have to be like it, and it's not because you're not doing an action. Rav Zvid matni hochim. Rav Zvid taught the following. He learned from his Rebbe as follows: Omar Rami Bachama. Hamechamer achar behema b'Shabbat b'shogeg eno chayav chatat b'mezid chayav skila. Aha. So Rav Zvid, he takes it halfway from Rabbi Bacham. He says it's a very good point from avodah zarah, so you can't get chatat, but you could get skila. If you do it b'mezid, skila. If you do it b'shogeg, since it's not similar, it's not an action. So therefore, it's going to be you're not going to bring a chatat. Mosiv Rava. So Rava said to Rami Bacham, you can't take this halfway. Why? The Mishnah said if someone the Mishnah says if you mechalel Shabbat on something, it puts it together that you're chayav b'shigato, but doing it by mistake chatat. You're chayav if you do it on purpose skila. It sounds like if you don't bring a chatat, they go hand in hand. You can't have something getting one half and not the other half. If you sin inadvertently, you get chatat. Then on purpose you get skila. So Rambam says if you don't get chatat, you don't get skila if you do it on purpose. So the Gemara says mikatani ha'in chayavin. Hachi kamer. Does it say the opposite? Does it say if you don't get chatat, you don't get skila? No. This is what it says. Dover shechayav al shgigos chatos chayav al zoin skila. V'yesh dover shechayav al shgigos chatat v'chayav al zoin skila. Umayniu ha-mechamer. All it says is the positive. The positive, there's a chain reaction. Meaning, what do I mean by that? If you positively are chayav chatat, if you do this by mistake, if you find something on Shabbat, you can positively say that if you do it by mistake, you're going to bring a chatat. Then you can positively, there's a chain reaction that if you do it b'mezid, you're going to get skila. But it doesn't say the negative, that if you don't get chatat, you can't get skila. Maybe there are things that have skila that are not chatat. What we're saying is, if there is chatat, there's for sure skila. Now, if there's no chatat, could there be skila? Perhaps. That's all. So Rabbi Bar Chama is still around. He's answering the kasha. Okay. Now the Gemara says a third opinion. Rava achud Rav Mari bar Rochel va'amilo avud Rav Mari bar Rochel. Rava, the brother of Rav Mari, the son of Rochel, and some say the father of Rav Mari bar Rochel. Who is Rachel? This Rachel was the daughter of Shmuel. She was taken into captivity. We had it before, I think, and a lot of times in Shas. And in captivity, she was violated by a man named Isur, a guy. Isur, right? That's what it was. It was an Isur. So what happened was that from that story, Rav Mari was born. But this guy Isur was not as bad as you think. He became a ger. Now whenever it says Rav Mari, it always is miyachesism to his mother, not his father, for kavod. Rav Mari bar Rochel. He was a grandson of Shmuel. So now this Rava is it says either he's the father of Rav Mari or the brother of Rav Mari. So the Gemara says Lishna Batra Kashiha. The Rav Achshere, the Rav Mari bar Rochel Umani b'Fusay the Bubble. Doesn't make sense, says the Gemara. If Rava was the father of Rav Mari, so why did Rav have to give him a stamp of approval to Rav Mari bar Rochel and make him into a head official, a policeman in Bavel? Okay? The halacha is, the Gemara in Kedushin says, Som tasim alecha melech mikerev achecha. Place a king upon you from amongst your brothers. Which means a ger, even though the Torah says 36 times to love him, but he cannot be appointed as an official over the people. Like a rabbi even, or a head of the city, head of the board, as the head official, the head police, a king, all those things. A ger can't be appointed. So, how do you know that it's talking about a king over there? Because it says som tasim, double lashon. Any official appointment they can't have over Klal Yisrael. Has to be mikerev achecha. So therefore, Rav said it's enough if one of your parents are really Jewish. So, meaning as long as you're not a full-fledged. So his mother was Jewish. Well, I don't know if any of them, but I guess if your mother is Jewish, because you're not a ger, right? So Rav was saying his mother's Jewish, and we could Rav was trying to make a point. His mother is Jewish. Don't worry about the fact that his father is a guy. That's enough. Now, if his father was Rava, doesn't make sense. Why do you have to do that? This Rav Mari bar Rochel has nothing to do with everything I just told you, that whole story. Because his father is Rava, not Isur. So the Gemara says it doesn't make sense. If you say Rava was his brother, maybe. But Rava is his father. So the Gemara says, Dilma Trei Mari bar Rochel Hava. Maybe there were two of them. Meaning, one was the story I told you, and one was this one, that Rava was his father. Now, the truth is that if Rava was his father, then you have to know again why is his name Rav Mari Bar Rachel? Why is he going after his mother? Rashi doesn't like this whole girsa here, by the way. He says, how could you say Rav is this father? The whole girsa, the whole Gemara, Rashi doesn't have here. Okay. Anyways, let's continue. What did he paskin by Mechamer? He said as follows. He would teach the following shmaita, this following halacha. Mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan, the name Rabbi Yochanan. Liftur. And the following braita, it was a leniency. He was saying that if you do mechamer, you patur. You know, again, Rabbatai, what's mechamer, Lior? If you take the animal and you tell the animal to walk while you put the package and you make the animal go. He said, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, mechamer acha b'amto b'Shabbat patur miklum. You don't have to bring anything. Why? Even if you did it b'mezid. Why? Because b'shogig lo mechayev chatat hu k'shekol Torah kula avodah zarah. Since the whole Torah is tied to avodah zarah, he didn't do an action. B'mezid nami lo mechayev, and even b'mezid you don't bring anything. Ditana mechalel tashavat b'davar shechayavin asher gigoto chatat chayavin az donoskila. If you mechalel Shabbat, something that's shogeg, so as dono you bring skila. Ha ein chayavin ashkego chatat, ein chayavin az dono skila. But if you're not chayav shkego chatat, you don't bring b'mezid skila. And since mechamer b'shogeg doesn't have chatat, like the diuk we made before, you don't get skila. Now, this so far, so good. It sounds like Rava before. He said you don't split it halfway. Rava said that the Mishnah over there said there's only 40, so you don't bring skila, you don't have chatat. But according to Rava, do you get makot? Yeah. Here Rabbi Yochanan is about to tell you get nothing. Here's where he deviates. So Rava said you don't get chatat, you don't get skila, but you get makot. Rami Bar Chama said you don't get chatat, but you get skila if you do it on purpose. And Rabbi Yochanan says if you do it by mistake, you don't get chatat, like all the other two. If you do it on purpose, first of all, you don't get skila. That's not like Rabbi Bar Chama.
Skila is stoning?
Yeah. Chatat is you do by mistake, you bring it's a carbon. A sin offering. You don't get skila like Rabbi Bar Chama if you do it on purpose. You don't get makot either like Rava. You don't even get a lav. Bilav nami, and bilav also you don't get. Lo mechayev. The havali lav shanit la'azoras misas bezdin v'chol lav shanit la'azoras misas bezdin and loikin olov. There's a rule. Any lav, ready for this rule? Okay, there's a rule, first of all, that any lav means don't, or not, a negative commandment. Do not do this. Do not eat pork. Do not wear shatnez. The normal rule is, do not muzzle your animal while it is threshing. That is the quintessential lav, because over there is where the Torah says makot.
What's threshing?
When it threshes, when it walks in the threshing floor in order to step on the wheat so that it cracks open, so it's easy to remove the kernel, right? From the shaft. So they used to make it walk around and around and around, so it's very heavy. Right? It's called the threshing floor. They had this room, and they put these things on it and they make it walk around. So you're not allowed to put a muzzle. That's lo tachsom shor b'disho. That's the whole pasuk, by the way. It's the whole pasuk. Maybe I shouldn't say it by heart. The whole pasuk, but I think it's a very famous one, so maybe you could say it. Anyways, there is where the Torah says makot. You're going to get makot. We learned from there that any other lav in the Torah, we're not going to get into the whole drasha now, it's a Gemara and makot. Any other lav in the Torah that looks similar to that lav gets makot. You know why you get makot if the person eats pork? It doesn't say in the Torah, if you eat pork, you get makot. It just says don't eat pork. Because it's similar to the one I just told you. That's why. Because they both have an action. Don't wear shatnez, same thing. Okay? Now, don't be mechamer your behema. Mechamer means make your donkey walk with a package on Shabbat. This is what we're talking about today. So the Gemara says, no. There's a rule. Any lav in the Torah that's written there, because you know the Torah has, there's another rule. There's a few rules I got to tell you, but they're very easy. One is, ein onshin elohim kein mazhirin. You can't get a punishment to the Torah, even if the Torah says, if you do this, we're going to kill you in the worst way. There's no way Hashem could have said that without first somewhere warning you not to do it. Now, if it says you're going to get killed, obviously there has to be a lav. You have to find it. Sometimes the Gemara says, where is it? But Hashem can't. So first it has to say, except by money. By money, it could say littering, like $500. You know those signs? If you litter, $500. Well, you didn't warn me. You didn't say don't litter. By money, Tosfot says, Makot, that's fine. But by punishments, you need to first tell them, do not do this. And then you could say whatever you want. If you do it, you get this. Like, for example, the quintessential, the classic example of that is Acharei Mot Kedoshim. The whole Acharei Mot, the Torah keeps saying, do not marry this person, do not have relations with this person, with this one. It doesn't say. And then in Kedoshim it says, if you marry this person, you get skila. If you marry this person, you get that. That's this lavin, there's the azhara, the warning, and there's the onesh. Okay. What happens if you find a pasuk that says, don't do something? And you need that pasuk to say don't do, because there's going to be a punishment of death. For example, do not kidnap and sell somebody. Masechet hadibrot. Okay? He's giving a typical, one of the things that you die for. One of the 10 Commandments. Lo tignov. Exactly. Now you go to two witnesses, see a guy about to kidnap a kid. They say, listen to me. It doesn't have to be a kid, it could be an adult also. If you kidnap that guy and sell him, you're going to get makot. They say the wrong thing. Instead of saying they're going to get killed, they say you're going to give makot. The guy doesn't listen. He goes, yeah, I don't care. They bring him to court. They say, we warned him. Yeah, you warned him you're going to kill him? No, you kill him? No, we didn't warn him to kill him. We warned him he's going to get makot. So could you say, look, makot is all included in getting killed. Of course you give makot. Every lav, every negative commandment is learned from the one that I told you don't. And you get makot. Happens to be this one has even more. Okay, you didn't warn him for more. Fine, so you can't kill him because he wasn't told that he's going to die. But you for sure it's not worse than any other lav. No. So the rule is like this. You can't pull out a makot out of that avera. Because it's called a lav sheniten le'azharat mitat beitin. It's a lav that was given. Hashem had to write it. In order to give you mitah. For when you warn him properly and tell him he's going to die. So you can't say, we're also going to pull out another thing. If Hashem wrote it, every time Hashem writes not to do something, you give makot. So we'll also take out a makot from there. No. Since I know it already was used for something, it's used for the fact that I'm going to punish him with death, so I can't pull out makot out of there as well. Okay, got it? So if you mess up and you tell him, you're going to get makot, and you bring him to court and you tell him that you said that, he's not going to get the makot. He's going to be scot-free. Hashem will take care of him. If he doesn't do teshuvah, this guy did a sin that was punishable by death on purpose. But so Hashem knows what to do with him. But Beit Din can't do anything to him. They can't give mitah because he didn't warn him. They can't give makot because there is no makot for any law that's written that had to be written for mitah. Got it? Case dismissed.
Is this also hold for Talmidei Chachamim? That they have to give him a zara?
So the Rabbi Yehuda says in Sanhedrin that for Talmidei Chachamim maybe you don't need azara. It might be a machlokes tanoim, such a thing. I don't remember the Psak Halacha exactly. And yeah, he says that the only reason why there's azara is so that you could discern between shogeg and meiz. But if you're a Talmid Chacham, you already know you're not allowed to do it, so there's no reason to azara. Yeah, einach nami. There is such a right. Okay, so now what does it have to do with us? So he says like this. Where does it say you're not allowed to be mechamer? It says, Lo ta'aseh melacha, ata uvehemtecha. Right? I just want to read the pasuk exactly. Yom Hashvi Shabbat Hashem Elokecha Lo Ta'aseh Kol Melacha Ata Uvicha Uvitecha Avdecha V'Amatcha Uvehemtecha. That's the pasuk. Now that pasuk had to be written for when one is. That whole pasuk had to be written for when you do the avera by yourself. Okay. Not only for your animal, but that pasuk had to be written for when a person does the avera of himself that he's going to get. He was just over. He violated what Hashem said. He transgressed. We need a lav. We need a warning for him to get killed by regular melacha on Shabbat. So therefore, since this lav was written for the purpose of killing the man when everything is set in place to kill him, so you can't derive any makot out of it. So even if you find inside that lav a lav of mechamer, you say it's a weaker lav because you're not really doing it, because it's your animal doing it, it's just that you're getting your over melacha as if you did it, but you're not going to be able to get a makot. Where are you going to get a makot? From this warning? So it's so similar to all other warnings? It's not, because this one had to be written to give mitat beitin. Okay? Even according to the man that says that you're loikin on a lav shenitin lazarus misas bezdin. There's a man makot that says that doesn't bother him. Okay? Lichtov Rachmana lo ta'aseh kol melacha uvehemtecha. Ata lama li? Why does the Torah have to say lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata? Who else is talking about lo ta'aseh kol melacha? If he just said lo ta'aseh kol melacha, lo ta'aseh, it's talking to us, to you. Ata? Every time it says don't eat chazir, it says right? Don't eat chazir. You, of course it's you. So the ata is extra. Therefore, it's coming to tell you like this. Who knew the mechayiv? Behem to la mechayiv. Only you. You're going to get a punishment. Okay. But if your animal does it, obviously the animal's not going to get it. I'm saying if your animal does it, you're not going to get punishment. It's separating them. Right? There's two melachot. Lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata. That one you get a punishment for. Okay? It separates it. And that one you get makot too. Because we're going according to the man that says you could get makot even if it was given lahazaras misas bezdin, as long as you want it for makot. But your animal will be a separate story, and you won't get anything. Now, okay. This is the halacha, by the way. Mechamer achar behemdov Shabbat, like Rabbi Yochanan, nothing. No punishment. No chatat, no skilat, no nothing. The Ramban explains, because what the Torah is saying is, I mean, he's going like Rabbi Yochanan because of the atav, he has separate and all this, but it's the Torah is saying you can't be chayav for anything, that even though you're not allowed to do it, but it didn't happen through you. Happened mainly from the animal, you just bring it about through that. Okay. Anyways, it says that if you put something on your chamor, because you have your wallet with you, you place it on the chamor, and remember we said you place it on the chamor when the chamor is walking. So you shouldn't be over on mechamer. The Gemara asks how can you do it? You're over mechamer, this lav. Even if you don't get a punishment, you're not allowed to do it. So the Gemara says you do it while it's walking, and then if it stops, for any reason, you take it off. And you wait till it takes a step again to start walking, you put it back on. Okay? So the question of the Gemara is, and then the Mishnah said, when you get to the first protected area in the city, you take off the things that are muktzah, and the things that are muktzah that are tied on, you untie it and let them fall down by themselves. Okay? Fine. Omer Rav Huna. Hayta be'imta tuna klei zchuchit. If it was the carrying glass vessels, okay? Now we're going to see in a second, it's talking about muktzah glass vessels. Why the muktzah, we'll see in a second. Maybe karim muktzah meniach tachteh. So now, what am I going to do? Untie it. So now they're going to fall down. They're all going to shatter. What you do is bring pillows, blankets, make a whole thing around it. And when they fall, they won't break. So it says Gemara, why do you have to untie them? Take them. It says the Mishnah said anything that's not muktzeh, you take. So these are not muktzeh. So the Gemara says, Ki ka'amar Avuna bekarnei de'umna. These cups, they were made like horns, and they were used by the bloodletters, the makis dam. These are all dirty on Shabbat, and you're not allowed to do any bloodletting on Shabbat. So therefore, since they're kind of dirty and repulsive, so they're muktzah. And muktzah machat mius. Okay? So the Gemara says, so now the problem's like this. We learned before, you're not allowed to be mevatel, ruin. Maybe it's like binyan, it's like building because it's staying there forever, staying there for now for Shabbat. You're not allowed to ruin an item's ability to be used for its purpose. Now when you take these blankets and pillows, you put them down over here, or like stira, okay? Rashi before said boine, some would say over here like stira. The point is that now you're not going to be able to use these pillows and blankets anymore. Okay? So since you're not allowed to use these pillows and blankets anymore, the Gemara is asking, you're being mevata kli mechonei. So the Gemara answers, b'shlifei zutri. These are very, very little tiny cups. And since they're really little packages of tiny cups of umon, what you could do is, you could just keep slipping them out, and they should fall onto the next pillow, and then the next pillow. And therefore, you're not going to really ruin the purpose of these blankets, because you'll still be able to move them around afterwards. Okay, because they're not heavy. So you'll be able to slip them out without them breaking once they hit the pillows. So the Gemara says, Meisvei, the Braita says, if your animal is carrying untithed produce, v'ashashiot, and large, thick pieces of glass, matir et hachavalim, you're allowed to untie the ropes, v'hasakin noiflin, v'afapi shemishtabrin, and you do this even if they break. Which means that you're not allowed to leave them on the animal the whole Shabbat. You want to be very religious. I don't want to do any muktzah. No. It says the Braita to untie them right now because it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Or last night. Shabbat. What's the animal going to hold them on his back the whole Shabbat? It's Tzar Bali Chaim. There's an Easter to be mitzaer an animal so much. Yeah, but it's muktzah. What do I do with it? Untie it. Let them break. But it doesn't say there bring pillows and blankets. So the Gemara says Hasam b'chulsa. There we're talking about kulsa. Kulsa are very wide, broad pieces of glass, and they're not real kalim. They're made to be broken into little pieces, and make, to be able to make windows. So you're not going to really lose out anything if they break. Because anyways, they have to break. You have to break them. So therefore, they didn't lose out. So therefore, they didn't give you a heter to bring the pillows and blankets. Okay? So the Gemara says, Dekanami, we also have a diuk, Dekatoni. Dumyo de tevel. It says the glass and the tevel are one. They're like one halacha. Ma tevel delei chazile, afachanami delei chazile. Just like by tevel, it's muktzah. So to here, the ashashiyot are considered muktzah also. Now, why is the Brisa teaching that they're muktzah? Of course, we know they're muktzah. But what we're trying to say is that they're so similar to the case of tevel that they're muktzah, and you're not going to lose out anything if they break. So the Gemara says, "Umay afal pisha mishtabin." So what does it mean? Even though they're going to break the Brita. The Brita sounds like the reason why you let to do it, the reason why you must do it, even if they break and you lose out. So the Gemara says, "Mahu de teima." Lehefsid muit nami chashishu kamash v'lan. There's going to be a small loss. A few of the pieces won't be able to be used. So therefore, you would think that I could bring the pillows and blankets. So it says no, because for a small little loss, you're not allowed to bring pillows and blankets. Okay? So the Gemara says, Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, Hoyse behemte tu'une shlif shel tvua, meniach roishe tachtel, u'mesalke letzad acher, v'hu neufel me'elov. If he was carrying a bundle, a package of tvua, of grain, of untithed grain, which is muktzah, so what you do is, you put your head under one side of the package, u'mesalke, and you move it with your head, letzad acher, to the other side of the animal, basically, you knock it off with your head, right? Because it's not muktzah to use your head. So the Gemara says, "Chamora shel Rabbi Gamliel hayta teuna dvash, v'lo ratza leforka ad motzei Shabbat, lemotzei Shabbat meta." Rabbi Gamliel, his chamor, was carrying honey. Rabbi Gamliel didn't want to take it off. The weight of the animal, the weight of the package, killed the donkey by motzei Shabbat. So the Gemara says, that's what Rabbi Gamliel did. You're allowed to take off the unmuktzah items. The Mishnah said. So why did Rabbi Gamliel take them off? Kishahidbish. The honey became vinegar, went bad. So now it became muktzah. So the Gemara says, Hidbish l'may chazi. So why in the world was he carrying vinegared honey? Bad honey. So the Gemara says, L'ktita de gamli. In order to smear it on the back of the gomel, because they use that as like a medicinal thing for the back of the camel, because the camel used to get all these scabs and cuts from the packages, so they used to rub that on. So it says the Gemara, so he needs this. So why doesn't he just untie it like the Mishnah said? Let them fall down. So fine, they're muktzah, so that's why you leave it on. The Mishnah says, don't do tzar b'alechaim, untie it, let it fall. Mitztiru ziki says all the flasks would break, and the honey would spill out. This bad honey that they used as a thing, as a cream. Shabbat shalom, David. So the Gemara says, V'yavi karim uchsastas v'yoniach tachtein. So why don't you bring pillows and blankets and put it underneath, like we said by the glass? So the Gemara says mitamfi, because they would get all dirty. And then they wouldn't be able to be used the whole day, and you'd be mevatel kli mehechonoi. Become mevatel kli mehechonoi. Says the Gemara, v'ha'ikot tzar b'alechaim. Okay, fine. So you have all the issues of muktzah, so now you're going to leave it on the animal. There's another issue now. And the issue that you're going to end up doing is worse because it's doraita. You're going to cause pain to an animal, which is doraita. There's a machloket about it, by the way. And the Gemara answers that, since it's a machloket, because savet tzar b'alechaim d'rabanan. He didn't hold like that. He felt that it's Isur B'tal Ba'al Chayim, the Rabbanan. And that can't push off the Isur of Mevatel Kli Mehechonoi. Therefore, he let the animal die. One second. So why is that one better than that one? Mata klima echonoi. No, right? It's just the Rabbanan Tzar B'al Chaim is the Rabbanan. So why does Tzar B'al Chaim lose? The answer is what? No, they're both in that, but both the Rabbanan. One is Levata Klima Hechano. If I bring the blankets, they get dirty and I won't be able to use them today at all. Even if I slip things, it's not going to help. It is because it's Hefsid Meruba. But Mokav Hefsid, or I don't know, Meruba, Mokav Hefsid, if you're going to lose money, then Tzar B'al Chaim, they didn't make Gzera. Fine. So the Gemara says, Abai Ashkech the Rabbi, the Kamashafshef, the Vrei Agaba the Chamra. Abai once found the Rabbi, his Rebbe, that he was rubbing his son on the top of a donkey. What he was doing is he was playing a game with his son. Rabbi Nachanel over here says that it means that he had him going on the donkey like this, and the boy was slipping down, and he caught him. So Amalei, so Abaye told his Rebbe, you're using animals for a purpose on Shabbat. You're not allowed to ride on a behemoth Shabbat, and you're not allowed to do any other usages with an animal on Shabbat, because they made a gzeir that you might come while you're riding to break off a branch to hit it, and that's a isur of kotzer lachadoraita. And included in that prohibition was the isur of any usage of the animal, leaning on the animal, anything. Sitting in a wagon that's pulled by the animal. So how do you use this? I am using the sides of the donkey. The sides, the sides of the animal, the Rabbanan would never go, it was only on top of the animal. So, the Gemara says, Minot Temra, where do you know that the sides are not a problem? Our Mishnah says you untie it, and the bags will fall down. What type of bags are we talking about? My love, bechever gavalki. We're talking about bags that have straps that are tied from one side to the other. The havelhut stadin. So what you're doing is you're using the sides of the animal. Why? Because your body, when it's untying these things, is leaning on the sides of the donkey in order to unstrap these things properly. And it must be that you're allowed to do it because the sides of the animal legozu b'rabbanan. So the Gemara says, loy bechever agavalke, not the lehavit stod. We're not talking about. We're not talking about chever gavalki, but chever agavalki. What's that? These are bags that their straps are tied to each other not from the side of the animal, but rather they have like a little ring, a metal ring, and there's like a little peg sticking out. The law have it studied. All you got to do is remove that peg out of the ring, and they'll just fall out by themselves. Inami bilachta. Or it's possible to say that the way you attach them is not the sides of the animal. You didn't strap these straps around the sides of the animal, but rather there was a lachta, was like a piece of wood that was bent, and you have to take that piece of wood out of the two sides, and that's what happens. But avada, you're not using the sides of the donkey at all. So the Gemara says, Eitvei, really? So you're telling me that you're allowed to use the sides of the animal? This Mishnah in Sukkah says, Shtayim bidei adam ve'achat bi'ilan ksheira ve'in lo b'yomtiv. Two of the walls are made from people, and one wall is made by a tree. The Mishnah is ksheira. Why? Because all the walls can be made out of whatever you want. Because they can be made out of tree, because even though the tree is attached to the ground, it's not the schach. And only the schach has an issue with being attached to the ground. So really you can have all three walls made out of tree. But the Mishnah says you're not allowed to climb that sukkah in Yom Tov. Why? Because you might end up what? Putting down your kelim on the schach. And the schach is leaning on the tree. And what happens is, you're going to end up using the tree. My love, the chok bebila. The havelut stodin. How did you get this tree, this wall, to stand on a tree? Isn't it talking about the chok baby ilon? You made holes, you etched holes into the tree, and you put the wall boards into those holes. The havelut stodin. So now the wall is considered the side of the tree, and now you're using the sides, like things that jut out of the tree, are called stud ilon. And now you're using the sides of the tree. Because if you put things on the schach, which is leaning on those boards, which is in the tree, that's like using the side of the tree. So the Gemara says, Utstadin asurin. So you see here that you're not allowed to go up on Yom Tiv, because you might end up using that. And using that is using the tztadeh ilon. So tztadeh and ilon and tztadeh behemoth should have the same halacha, Rabbatai. Just like you're not allowed to use a tree, you're not allowed to go on a tree, and you're not allowed to go on an animal, so the same halachas apply. So the Gemara says, Loi, the kafir the ilon. We're talking about you bend the ilon. You take two trees and you bend them down like this to each other. And you tie them together. And you make a wall out of it. And then you put schach on top of that. So then if you would put things on top of your schach, then you know what would happen? You wouldn't be using the tztadeh ha'ilon. Tztadeh ha'ilon is mutter. Using the ilon itself. So the Gemara says, Ihachi ema seifa, shalosh b'dei adam, ve'achas be'ilon ksheira, ve'oil lo b'yamtiv. If you have three walls made out of b'dei adam, by regular, right? Regular walls, and one is made out of the tree, it's kosher, the sukkah, of course. Ve'oil lo b'yamtiv, you're allowed to even go in yamtiv. And you're not worried about him using the schach on top of the kafir ilon. If you made the wall by bending the trees, at the end of the day, one side is placed on a tree. The Elamite stud in Asturin. So the Gemara says, what does it have to do with this? What does it have to do with me? And let's say you want to say that what do you want to prove here? That it's Tzedodin and Stodin are Asurin. It's talking about a case of Stodin, and then you could explain to me the Mishnah. Then you could explain to me the Mishnah that if the three walls are made regular and the fourth wall is made out of Stodin, things that were put in to the Ilon, it's not the actual Ilon itself. Then you could understand why you're allowed to go on a Yom Tov. You still might be using the Stodin, like putting something on the schach. What's the difference if it's 3 walls and one of the 3 walls is made out of tree, or 4 walls and one of the walls? So Gemara says, Elohosam, bigvozo pasachna. The ilan gufei doifim ba'al mahud deshavi. We're talking about a tree which has very, very spread out branches, and they come out like this on all sides. So you can actually use the tree without doing anything to it as a wall. And then so let's say you have a tree, right? It goes like this. So now this is a wall. And I'm not going to put the schach on it at all. So I'm not going to end up using the schach on the 4th side at all. Since I already have 3 walls, I can put the schach safely and securely on the other 3 walls. And now I'm just going to use this for the 4th wall. And I'm not going to end up using this at all. Now, if you use 2 walls and the 3rd wall is this type of tree, then you're going to have to place the schach. You're not going to only place the schach on 2 walls. It's not going to be enough on the 3rd wall as well. Tekanami, says the Gemara Diktonis, the Aklal, Kol she'ilu yinot el ilam v'yechel lamed el lo b'yom tev shma mina. The Mishnah there says, this is the rule. Okay? That if one of the walls is made out of ilam, the rule is like this. You check out like this. Kol she'ilu yinatel ha'ilam v'yechol lamod. If you take away the ilam, and the schach will be able to stand by itself, so you see that that's exactly the case. The case is that you have a wall made out of tree that you're not using at all for the schach. Shma mina. So therefore we know that when the Sefer says that the 3 walls are made out of Adam, and the last one's made out of Elon, it's talking about a case where the schach is not leaning on the wall at all. Okay, let's start over here. Shabbat shalom.